wherever or whenever. It's Big Victories.
You could bet it all on me. Anything that I do it B-I-G. Shot callers, so they call on me. If my dogs don't eat, then they fall on me. It's the ice on the wrist for me. I'm living life like it's meant to be. Lived everyday shit, everything big. Big crib, big bands, nigga, it's a big victory.
Welcome to another episode of the Big Victories podcast. Jeremy St. Louis alongside the man we call Big Vic, and Mev the Renegade joining us as well from his crib. And we are very excited today to have one of the gubernatorial candidates in the state of Florida, Annette Taddeo, joining us today. Annette, very nice to have you with us. How are things going today?
They're hectic, but it's Florida. What else do you want? But no, things are great, and thank you. I'm delighted to be with you guys.
Annette is one of 6 gubernatorial candidates for the state of Florida, but one of 3 very prominent Democrats in this race. And Annette, I just want to start by asking you just, you represent District 40 in Miami-Dade County. You've been involved in politics for a long time. So I guess I just want to start by just asking you to give us some background. Give us that where did you start story.
Well, how far back can I go?
You can go back as far as you like.
You got to start back to Alabama because, I went to school in Alabama. So, yeah.
You know, there's an Alabama connection.
Yes.
Look, I am originally from Colombia, South America. I was born there to an American fighter pilot. My dad was in the Air Force. He fought in World War II. He fought the Nazis. And my dad actually is a lot of my inspiration. He's the one that really got me that fighting spirit. And he always told me, when the cause is just, don't stand on the sidelines, get in there and fight. And he taught me to fight always for a just cause. And I sort of needed it from the get-go. I was born with a cleft lip. I was not able to drink from my mother's breast milk, or learning to speak was difficult. But hey, and of course, lots of bullying as you're growing up. But look, that fighting spirit got me through, and 19 surgeries later, I'm here with all of you guys smiling, and I can puedo hablar en español or in English.
Wow.
And I needed that fighting spirit again at 17 when the FARC, a terrorist group, took over the farm. I grew up in Colombia and kidnapped my father. And I found myself fleeing to Alabama, of all places, where I was on my own. I was alone, and I lived with a family, and graduated high school, college there, had to learn English. I thought I spoke English, and then I realized I didn't, and had to learn how to survive on my own. So that fighting spirit really got me through. And after college, I came here to Miami, and I started a business that I've had for 30 years. I like to say that unlike Ron DeSantis, I've signed the front of the check, not just the back of the check. And but I will say, how did this all get started? This public service, this desire to really serve, and it really got started in Alabama. In college, I decided to run for student government secretary, and I put posters all over the school that said Annette Taddeo for secretary. And on the way of the election, on the day of the election, as I was walking over to go vote, I noticed that my posters with my picture no longer said Annette Taddeo for secretary. They said Annette Taddeo for deportation.
Oh, my.
Wow.
And it was that moment, obviously in college, you're young. I realized at that moment I could be bitter, I could be angry, or I could allow this moment to inspire and strengthen me. And that was the day that I decided that I would actually run for office someday, because I know that no matter the color of your skin, your gender identity or sexual orientation, the accent you have, where you come from, all of these things, actually are the strength of our diversity, is what makes this country great. And I knew that someday I was going to run for office to ensure that strength of our diversity actually brings us together. And here I am, a state senator against all odds, because my party told me not to run in that special election to replace Frank Artiles. Yes.
Yeah, I remember that guy.
Yeah, we still remember that guy. He's still causing trouble.
Yeah.
But I replaced him. It was the first time in Florida history that we had a seat flipped from red to blue in a special election. And I have since gotten reelected. I became the first Latina Democrat in Florida history, and also the first Latina Jew in the Florida legislature. And against all odds, because the party literally called me and said, "We don't want you to run. We don't think you can win." And I said, "You know what?
Feel about that? How did you feel about that? Not to cut you off, because to me, I definitely would like that expression from you.
Well, here's what I said. I don't ask my husband what to do. I don't know what makes But you know, look, they tried everything. They didn't just call me. They also called the African American pastors in Senate District 40 who were encouraging me to run, who were saying, you know, we need somebody that actually shows up in our side of the district, not just other sides, and shows up not just come election time, but all the time. And so they were encouraging me, and they also got the call saying that I you know, they couldn't support me. And it was great to see them go, you know what, we know her, we want her. And sure enough, I've now won twice, and we totally made history, and we're going to make history again with the first woman and the first Latina governor in Florida history.
Wow. You know, your story is the inspiration for not just immigrants, but I think American, period. Yeah, period.
Yeah.
Because I understood that time. We might be around the same age or a little bit, couple years different. I remember how it is to live in Alabama. Me being from Miami, went to school in Alabama. If you wasn't as, you know the words, you didn't get accepted. So for you to actually make it through from those experiences and become who you are today, I got to commend you. That is a big victory in my book. So I got to commend you on that from the beginning. Before we get into
let me add some additional Alabama story, because I think this is important, because a lot of people say, you know, Annette, the odds are so, like, this guy has all this money, and what makes you think you can beat him? And he wants to be president. And I was like, you disappeared. He wants to be president and all these things. And I'm going to tell you why. You know, I picked believe as my tagline for my campaign, and why I truly believe in the promise of America. I believe in what we can be, not what. You know, not going backwards, going forward, and that promise, and fulfilling that promise. Well, after I won my special election, I actually got a call from the University of North Alabama, and they asked me to come and give the commencement speech to the graduates of 2018. And I said yes right away, because obviously it's a huge honor to go give the commencement speech. But I will tell you, I was hesitant. I was like, should I tell them the story? Should I tell them how this all got started? I mean, this is deep red Alabama.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be booed. I'm going to be thrown out. They're going to throw things at me. Oh. But I decided at the end that I needed to tell the story, because it's bigger than me, and it's bigger than hate and division. And in these times, I mean, this was 2018. So these times that we've been living of so much hatred, so much division, politicians really trying to, to blame everybody else for all the ills, instead of trying to come up with solutions to bring us together and move us forward. And I told my story in my accent in English to a huge stadium full of graduates and their families. And I wasn't booed. I wasn't thrown out. Instead, I got a standing ovation.
Wow.
And that's why I believe that we can bring people together, that if we just talk to each other, talk with each other instead of, scream at each other about our differences, why don't we try to understand each other, bring everybody, and really try to come up with solutions for everyone and opportunity for everyone. So that's why I believe, no matter the odds, that we can win.
Mav?
Senator Taddeo, looking at your story, I really see that you have this attitude of servitude. And one thing on this podcast we like to do, we like to delve deep and dive into, where do these attitudes and these morals and these ethics, where do they come from for you? And this attitude of servitude for you, where do you think that comes from?
Well, definitely from my dad, but also just really, I believe that we have a duty to leave this world a better place. And that is part of what I truly believe. And I think that I mean, a lot of people want to be successful. It's all about themselves, and certainly in politics, it's very egotistical kind of business, and a lot of personalities and a lot of things going on. But at the end of the day, I mean, really, I for me is when I get stopped at Costco and somebody says, when nobody else would answer me, you were the one that was on radio every day answering people's questions when we couldn't even get through a human being, and for our unemployment check, because the whole thing collapsed. No one would answer. No one, people just disappeared, and I was literally. I've never worked so hard in my life when I was trying to help, because it ended up being not just Senate District 40, it's people all over the state. And I'm actually one of the few that speaks Spanish. So I was really helping so many people. And hi, Aaliyah, that was my biggest number of calls. I don't even represent hi, Aaliyah, but and what's really nice is they're like, I've been a Republican all my life, but you're a true public servant, and just those kinds of things. I represent, a lot of people don't know this, I represent a district that voted for Trump by 6 points. And so I represent a very conservative area. And somehow I've been able to really put aside and to not just be about our differences, but about really serving everyone. And I think a lot of politicians get there and they forget that they're there to serve everyone, not just the ones that voted for you. Yep. And and also we've taken out the word public service from politics, and it's all about politics and power and what's next for me and what's going to be the next thing I'm going to do. I really, again, I think if you do a good job at what you're doing, the door's open, so it won't matter. And so for me, it's just part of my belief in leaving this world a better place. And whether it's about, the environment or just allowing other people. And this is before politics too. I've been doing how to help more minority businesses understand the process, how to make sure that they, when we're small business owners, we can't afford a lobbyist. So how do we learn to make sure that, we're getting opportunities, not hand-me-downs, but opportunities to participate, to just bid. And so these kinds of things I've been doing for a long time, long before politics. And we just need more of those voices of people that are wanting to truly leave the world a better place.
Okay, Senator, let's get into some of the issues here in terms of, what's going on in the state of Florida. Obviously, very challenging times for the United States as a nation, but challenging times for Florida as well. I mean, we've got inflation at a 40-year high. We've got gas prices through the roof. Small, low-income families are feeling it more than anyone. The state of Florida itself, here in South Florida, as you know, rental prices are through the roof. Real estate prices are through the roof. It's becoming unlivable for the people who have lived here their entire lives. So when you look at the state of Florida and you look at this gubernatorial race and kind of what you want to do, what's the biggest issue for you in the state of Florida right now?
Well, you have so many, but yes, you just touched on it. I mean, both the insurance and the rental prices are truly at a crisis level. South Florida has now become top in the nation. The city of Miami is number 1 in the entire country. I mean, to be more expensive than New York or San Francisco or Los Angeles is unheard of. I mean, this is a huge problem for Florida and our economy and our visitor industry. It affects everyone. So for people who think, it's not going to affect me because I'm good, I have to tell you, it will, because the reason you're seeing so many signs that say help wanted, inquire within, apply here, is because people can't afford to live here. And so they're going somewhere else because there's jobs everywhere. The job market is, again, going great. The unemployment has gone down. And of course, this brings prices up. But we have not, in Tallahassee, we've had no balance. It's been over 20 years of zero balance, only one side, and that is not good for anyone, and certainly not good for the economy. And now we're seeing the issue. Affordable housing is a huge issue that I have always said we need to outlaw, like literally pass a law so that no matter after I leave the governor's mansion, it will be set in stone that no one can actually get into the piggy bank of affordable housing. Because one of the reasons we have this huge problem is because it's been over 20 years of trying to take that money out of there for some pet project of different legislators instead of us actually investing long-term in the infrastructure for affordable housing and workforce housing. In addition to that, we have the insurance crisis. I mean, we should be dealing with this. We should be actually doing more, because this is a major problem that is rising the cost of housing and the cost of rentals. I personally, we sold our house and I haven't been able to buy a house because the prices went through the roof. Yeah. And I'm out of the market. And so I'm renting. And I literally 2 weeks ago got an email from my landlord saying that in order to renew my lease, the rent had to be raised 50%.
Wow.
And
they got me like that too.
And so all these people are getting this, it's including me. And it is really like, who can afford that? But I know it's also because of the issue of the insurance that has gone so high. And I tell you, I have receipts. Like last year, I stood there on the floor of the Senate and I was like, guys, all of you're voting to raise citizens insurance on all of your constituents. How can you vote for this? I was like, there's no sugarcoating it. It's here in black and white. You are voting yes to raising the rates. Next year, when all the phone calls in your office are all about why my insurance so high, yeah. I'm going to have this video to show everybody that I tried to warn everybody. And sure enough, that's exactly what we're going through. Everybody's calling. Everybody's saying, why is this happening? You know why this is happening? Because we have no balance in Tallahassee. The insurance companies actually run the show. The lobbyists that they hire run the show, and we don't have people that are there to truly make sure that we are representing the people and making sure, yes, we need insurance companies. Of course we need insurance companies, but you can't let them have the keys to the car. That's what we've done. So you have to have a balance, and that's not what has happened. And as a matter of fact, I did highlight something interesting, and that is that in almost a decade, we have not had a new company come into Florida. We've had a few leave or close down, but we haven't had a new company come into Florida. But now we did. One got approved, and lo and behold, is funded by the Chinese government. Not the Chinese government, but communist China. And so I sit there and I go, really? I mean, you guys love to talk about communism and how you're going to protect. But here, the first company that's approved by the DeSantis administration, and you look at the funding and it comes from communist China. And just the same thing with the money invested in Russia.
I want to ask you something about Russia when you brought it up. Your campaign, it was one of in 2016 that was hacked by Russia. To me, that was kind of extraordinary. Out of all the candidates running, why do you think they picked on your campaign?
Florida, the way Florida goes, the country goes, the way Miami goes, and we saw this. I mean, Democrats have been losing a lot of Hispanics voter support, and it has cost us elections. And frankly, I don't think we can win in Florida if we don't get that vote back, which is why I should be the nominee. But having said that, yes, I think that that's the reason. But I was running for Congress against the former congressman.
Yeah, I know him. Yeah, that guy.
And we were in a primary, and lo and behold, and when he got in the race, he was known. He was the former congressman, and I was 24 points behind, and everybody said she should just get out. Within a few weeks, I had caught up, and we were tied. And lo and behold, 2 weeks before the election, they put out all this information that was hacked, and it wasn't like there was anything on me. There was nothing there. It was the playbook. Which doors had we knocked on? Who had we mailed? Our our actual path to victory was, the opposing team was able to see it. And we ended up losing that election for 700 votes, that primary. And we knew if that were the outcome of the primary, that we would lose in the general, which is in essence what happened.
Yeah.
And but again, I'm glad you bring that up, because it is, again, there's been an influence of foreign countries in our country, and we need to be aware of it. I personally was not hacked per se, but the DNC was hacked, so therefore the DCCC, and then they picked and chose which races they thought they could make a difference in and play in. And obviously Miami, Miami with all the interesting issues that are in campaigns in Miami, this was the one that they decided to play in.
Wherever or whenever, it's Big Victory.
This podcast was recorded in Miami Podcast Studios. Call us now for booking 305-968-5366 for all of your video podcasting needs. 305-968-5366.
The Big Victories Podcast, hosted by Big Vic, with co-hosts Mev the Renegade and Jeremy St. Louis.
Every morning that I wake up, say a prayer and thank the maker for the
So, Senator, you talked about just to go back, I wanted to double back just on some of the issues that you had brought up. I mean, you brought up the fact that, we've got the insurance crisis. We have a real estate crisis of sorts. I mean, they're saying now that it's going to be 2 years before they even get enough housing starts for the people that want to buy houses. So how do you plan to go about fixing those problems?
Well, we could right now have a special session instead of this, cockamamie special session that we're having to just rubber stamp whatever the governor wants to erase Black and brown districts. But we could have a special session to deal with the insurance crisis, but at the same time also deal with the rental crisis. I mean, look, getting an email saying we have to raise your rent by 50% should not be legal. I know that it has to go up. We all know all the rents are going up, but there has to be at least some kind of a limit, and at least temporarily is what I would suggest, that we try out for 1 year a percentage up to just to try to get it more under control, and only for 1 year. I'm not saying it's permanent forever, but we should have some kind of parameters when we're in a situation like we're in, so that we can make sure that we still are protecting the people who own the properties and who want to rent them. It's not fair to them. They're having to pay more insurance. They're having to pay. So that's what I'm saying. Balance. It's like but now that's highway robbery.
Yeah.
50% is not necessary. I know that there's one condo building in Hialeah where it went up 65%. The reason they did this because they want people out.
Yeah,
they want people gone. And so sometimes they do it also to get rid of you, because they know that once they get rid of you, they actually get to rent it for a lot more. So at what point government does have a role, and I think that we could at least, while we're dealing with the crisis, come up with some parameters. The other thing we could do is we could also let local communities legislate their local communities, because what Miami needs to do, or Broward or Orange or Hillsborough, is very different from what you will do in some of these rural areas.
Yeah, and so I think we're a state by ourselves. Miami should be a state. Broward should be a state, and separate. Because I'm being serious. Because majority of money go to Upper Florida, where actually it's ridiculous, and the majority of people live in Florida and in Miami, and it's like two different countries.
True.
Like, you go up north, is exactly what you're saying, Senator.
Well, that's been part of my fight. I mean, like, I have the scars to show. I've been the one fighting. They've been wanting to turn MDX, which of course is our toll roads, which is a whole other discussion. But the fact is, we're paying tolls.
Yes.
It's a tax for driving on the road. And they want to turn that around and no longer let Miami manage that. No, they wanted to go to Tallahassee. You think we're going to see any of that? You think they're going to care? No, because we already are a donor county. No, heck no. And so I've been fighting all of this home rule encroachment, which has been nonstop. That's all they want to do is they want to tell communities what they can and cannot do. I mean, something as simple as straws.
Wow.
You can't regulate straws. You can't regulate plastic. You can't regulate plastic bags. You can't everything, again, because who's in charge? Big
Company
interests and not the people. And again, just because one community may not think the way that South Florida thinks, but South Florida, I mean, again, we live off of people visiting us. We need to have people visit us. And when you have dead fish floating on the bay, they're not going to visit.
I'm glad you went to South. We need to visit South Florida. There's a topic that I want to get into, right? Where it's so weird because Disney been there before DeSantis, and it's going to be there after DeSantis. Why this bill has caused so much issue? Don't say gay, and the fight with Disney. Me as a regular voter don't understand. Can you explain to us? Enlighten us a little bit so my people who's listening can understand what the fight is.
Well, clearly what DeSantis has shown us is that if he's willing to fight a company like Disney, which is clearly a big part of Florida's economy.
Very big.
Huge.
He's willing to fight anyone for him to get to his ultimate goal, which is not take care of Floridians, is he's running for president.
Yes.
And so this is really scary because you are no longer having someone that is truly going back to the question about public service, that is really serving and trying to see how to do a good job and make sure that everybody rises together and we all have opportunities. No, this is all about how do I make sure that an extreme base from the extreme right of voters, and not even in Florida, in Iowa and New Hampshire, are actually liking everything I do. When it comes to Don't Say Gay, I will tell you, it's such a mean bill. It is so crazy. I want you to know I am the only parent in the primary. I'm also the only parent in the race, period, general or primary, that actually has a kid in public school. And
say that again for that. I want people to understand that part
need to hear
because
that.
it's very important. Because public school education is different from actual private school education. Not because you don't learn anything in public school, but you actually get to network with people in public school. You learn different lifestyle, culture, and everything else. I want you to emphasize that again for me, Senator.
Well, and let me be very clear. Public education, a lot of the decisions on public education are being made by legislators and a governor who do not send their kids to public schools. 90% of our parents in Florida or over 90% send their kids to public school. We just got a brand new Supreme Court justice who graduated from Palmetto High School in Miami. Pride and joy of our public school system, yes. And pride and joy of Miami. And that's exactly what we need more of. But we have these legislators who are legislating things like Don't Say Gay. And by the way, when we stood up on the floor of the Senate and said, does this affect charter schools, considering that charter schools are funded by taxpayers? Right. No, it does not. Does this affect private schools now? Don't think that because they're private, everybody's paying that fee. No, we have vouchers, which is government money being spent on private schools for people to go there. And again, none of the rules apply to them on Don't Say Gay. Same thing on all the other things, including the banning of books. Yes, we passed a bill that DeSantis has signed to allow the banning of books. Yes. This is the kind of stuff that happens in China and in communist countries,
yes.
Not in the United States of America. We are the number one state in the country when it comes to actually banning books, and it is absolutely not okay. I should be able to go to a school library with my daughter. And if I decide that my daughter can take out that book and that's the book she wants to read, she should be able to read it. It should not be taken off the shelves just because somebody else thinks that it should not be on the shelf. It is absolutely outrageous. Where are we going to stop? But I just going back to what you were saying, this is again an issue that we don't have a lot of parents with kids in public school that understand the reality of what it is for our kids to be educated in public school. I know what my daughter's learning. I know my teachers, the teachers that are teaching my daughter. I know that they email me or call me. I talk to them, go to the PTA. But we don't have that. We don't have that. We have these people making decisions and they don't even have conversations with teachers. These evil teachers that they claim. And here we have a teacher shortage.
Evil teachers.
Yeah.
We have a teacher shortage. So anyway, so I could keep going on education. This is a big part of my campaign, by the way. I am actually advocating for us to do a lot more early childhood education, for us to expand pre-K from 3 hours a day. Who the heck works 3 hours a day? To a full day, and invest in real early childhood education, because right now we invest $13 a day on our kids' early childhood, which is really the basis for a kid to be able to be successful. Once they enter regular school, K through 12, if they are behind, and by the way, most of them are, we spend more money in remediation trying to get them up to speed instead of investing that money early on. So I'm not asking for us to spend more money. I'm asking us for us to spend it from the get-go where it needs to happen, so we're not doing remediation. And by the way, I'm also asking that we give those kids an opportunity to a bright future, because what we have right now is we actually have a pathway to prison, and we spend $61 a day to put them in prison. But we will not spend but $13 a day for pre-K education. Give me a break. That is what's wrong. That's why you need a parent who's actually going to say, let's do this right from the get-go, do well for these kids so we can have the workforce we need who's fully educated.
So when it comes to Don't Say Gay, if you become governor or we get a Democratic governor, what is the plan for Don't Say Gay?
Look, obviously, we would have to do a repeal bill.
Yes.
As governor, you do not have the power to simply repeal a bill that was passed by the legislature with your pen. There are many things we'll be able to do with a pen, including veto, which is how you pass some of these repeal bills. Because when you have veto power, you're able to go to some of these Republican legislators who, by the way, many of them told me in private, you're right, and I hate it, but I have to press this button, which is like, I'm like, I don't understand it, because I will tell you, I'm happy to stand up to anyone. I don't care if it's my own party. When it's wrong, it's wrong. And you need to remember, you didn't go there to answer to party leaders. You went there to answer to your constituents. And so unfortunately, yes, I'm a proud Democrat, but there are times when you need to have a backbone, like right now, what's happening next Tuesday with the special session on the fake drawing of maps, or should I say the deleting of Black and brown community.
Senator, let's get into that. Tell us about that special session, because obviously this is just another on a list of things from the governor that they are just trying to really limit the Black and brown vote in Florida.
Because they know when we come together and when we vote, we are going to win. And I have to tell you, I really believe that our path to victory, for me, is actually creating a brand new electorate. We keep thinking we're going to keep doing what we've tried for over 20 years, and we keep losing the governor's mansion. And then we wonder why. What I did in my special election, how do I get elected in a district that voted for Trump by 6, is I create my own electorate. I actually bring a coalition of Black and brown and independents and some Republicans that are really like they're not liking this that's going on there. Right. And you create a new electorate. So what are they trying to do here with the special session? We passed a bill out of the Senate and the House, a map that was drawn through a process with a committee, and we had staff that were drawing the map. They were trying to follow what the voters asked us to do. The voters voted and said, we don't want these maps being drawn to protect the incumbent or to protect this party or that party. They said we want it to be fair. It's called fair districts for a reason. And I will tell you, I wouldn't be elected today if it weren't for fair districts, because fair districts and the courts actually said we're going to have maps that are going to be fair. The fact that a Democrat represents a district and has won twice, that voted for Trump by 6, tells you how fair my map is.
Can you tell them where your district located and like where it starts and ends?
Yes, Senate District 40 is in Miami-Dade wholly. All of the unincorporated areas west of US 1 from 40th. So I have all of Tropical Park, that whole area, all the way down to 200th Street, which includes Gould's, Perrine. Well, not Gould's, actually. It's on the border of Gould's, but I do have Perrine. I say Gould's because I represent Gould's as well, because I end up going there because the other senators that represent that area don't go there.
Go there.
Yeah.
So anyways, so that's why I say Gould's, but no, it's not officially in my map. But yes, everything west of US 1, so all of Kendall is my biggest area.
District.
Yes, the zoo, Miami-Dade College, all of that. Yes, it's very large, and a lot of people don't know that we actually represent about 600,000 per Senate district constituents.
You're listening to the Big Victories podcast.
This podcast was recorded in Miami Podcast Studios. Call us now for booking 305-968-5366 for all of your video podcasting needs. 305-968-5366.
Welcome back to the Big Victory podcast for real.
So it's the part of the show where I actually try to get a little personal with our guests. I want you to go back to yourself, your 16-year-old self. That's my. He's a journalist, a real journalist, but I pretend to be a journalist. But what would you tell your 16-year-old self, like? Because I know the struggle, and I can sense your passion. What would you tell your 16-year-old self right now?
That's a very good question. I don't, because I have a 15-year-old daughter, so I have to watch what I say. She's going to watch this and she's going to be like, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm a pretty cool mom, though. Yeah, no, I think, I think I would say what I tell my daughter is make sure that whatever you do, you always love what you do. Because the reason people are like, wow, you look great. You look so happy. And you even look younger, people say, and here you are all these years later. And I'm just like, but I love what I do. I think that you want to get up every day and know that you're excited to go do your work. And when you go to bed, you're excited that you're doing something you love, to the point that sometimes you have to like put it aside because you won't stop it. It's late at night, you're still working. I think that's what's beautiful about making sure that you follow your passion. And so my 16-year-old self was going through a lot, and at 17, clearly even more when I had to flee. But it was a time when I was not thinking. I never knew at 16 years old that I was going to end up in the United States alone, without my parents. I mean, all of the struggles, and I was more worried about the next quince at that point. Yeah. Party but I always knew that an education was essential for my success. And I want you to know that that wasn't easy, because we are a testing society where we measure people based on their tests. And because of my limited English, my testing scores were terrible. Although my daughter says
it's better than mine. It's better. Don't worry, it's better than mine. Okay, so don't worry.
I don't know. I have mine framed at my office in Tallahassee. My score of 8. I proudly say it on my because I literally was being measured by that terrible score instead of being measured by my abilities, which that terrible score was due to my language, but it wasn't because I didn't understand math or science. And I really think that we as a society need to do much better. And we've seen it. By the way, this is something else I'm very passionate about. The testing, over testing. We've seen how during COVID, we waived all that stuff. We all of a sudden dropped the rate of people who dropped out of high school. We had graduation. I mean, I'm telling you, you should see the graph. Graduation rates went like that. And I'm just like, really? Like, this proves what I'm saying, because we have a lot of kids here. We have Haitians. We have kids that their parents, they become their parents' translators, and yet they're struggling and they're trying to figure out how to make it and how to get that Bright Futures scholarship or any kind of way for them to get to a better future, which is through an education.
Mav?
Senator, seeing you being a Latina civil servant, how important is that to you to represent for Latinas in Florida and, you know, just women to be in a position like yourself? How important that is to you?
Very. And I'm not just a Latina, I'm also from Colombia. So
exactly.
Believe me, my mom, when I got elected, she said, just remember, you know, everybody's looking at you. And, you know, when I first came here in the 80s, you know, you said you were from Colombia, and people sort of looked at your sign and they were like, what does that mean? And so for me, it's really important to make sure that I represent all communities, but especially Latinas, with pride, and understand all the different fights of all the different communities. I really believe that we're so much stronger when we're united.
Yes.
Today I was criticizing in front of Marco Rubio's office because he said that Venezuelans who are Democrats aren't real Venezuelans.
Oh,
and
he said that?
He said that. Not surprised.
Not little Marco.
Not surprised.
And, you know, it really, again, it's very disappointing and frustrating to see somebody, you know, when all these Venezuelans are fighting, many of them are fighting for, and many of us have joined them in that fight, is just for them to have the same rights from anyone else that flee from any communist country, and to treat, you know, one versus another differently is not right. And those Venezuelans that are here deserve, you know, a process for them to get to where Cubans have been able to get. And so I think that it is unacceptable to have a senator be saying those things. Again, many elected officials forget when they get elected, they got to represent everyone. And when people call my office, I don't ask, are you a Democrat or Republican or independent? I think it's just wrong to generalize like that and to say those hateful words. They hurt a lot of people's feelings, obviously.
Senator, one of the things we were kind of talking about before you joined us, just before the podcast started, is you know, at what point did we get to where it's okay to say the quiet part out loud? And you talk about, you know, the divisiveness, not just of the country, but here in Florida. And obviously that's where, you know, we think on a bigger scale, but obviously the focus for us in this conversation is Florida. So how do you go about bringing people together at this point in time with the political climate that we're in, where it is so divisive? And you have mentioned Governor DeSantis and the things that he has done to continue to divide and continue to exclude certain parts of the population that might not like him and might want to try and vote him out. So how do you, as a state senator and gubernatorial candidate and hopefully potential governor, bring different voices together in a more tolerant conversation?
Again, just by making sure that we hear each other out. It's not just scream at each other or only talk about our differences. Try to find our ways that we can work together. Let me give you an example. When I first got elected, again, special election, I had come in. They were literally, I was behind the 8 ball for the session because I got elected, and I was, before I even had the swearing in, which, by the way, I asked the first African-American Supreme Court justice in Florida, first and only, Peggy Quince, to actually swear me in. It was the first time that, I got to do that because that was a special election, and I wanted to send a strong message since I was replacing Partilas. And unfortunately, we don't even have one African American Supreme Court justice right now, which is completely unacceptable. And more people need to know that when you don't have representation on these decision tables, you are erasing entire communities, and that is not okay. So back to your your question as to what did I did. I wanted to tell you what I did when I first got elected. I get there, and all of these people, these Republicans knew me. They knew me because I had run for lieutenant governor. I had been Charlie Crist's running mate, and so they sort of knew me as a party chair in Miami-Dade of the Democratic Party. So they thought I was this hyper partisan person that was going to come in there and just be horrible to serve with. So what I did is I started studying all of their bills, because they had already filed their bills, because I was behind. And I studied all of their bills, and I set the goal to find one bill per senator on the Republican side of the aisle that I could actually co-sponsor with them, that I could find something in common. And then I met personally with each of them, and I said, hey, so I want to talk to you about this bill. I read it. I like it. What's your thinking? And then I said, may I co-sponsor and work on it with you? And it just opened up to where, hey, we have this in common. Even the guy who's now a congressman, this guy who was, I don't even remember his name now, but he was a senator who was always the super gun, friendly to guns kind of guy. And so I was like, I don't think I'm going to find anything on this guy. We actually passed a bill together about animal cruelty. So think about that. I was like, oh my God, we found something. Again, it's just really hard for people to then listen to you in committee or to listen to you on the floor if they don't respect you. So for me, it was really important to earn the respect of those across the aisle, for them to understand that I was not there to get a title. I was not there for pomp and circumstance. I was there to get things done and to get to know them and to get us to work together. And we have. And I've been very successful in Tallahassee for that reason. But I will tell you, most people don't know about, because it happens in the background. When you kill some really bad bills, nobody finds out because it never sees the light of day. But it doesn't see the light of day because you work so hard to really work with them. So yes, I think that's what I would do as governor, is continue that. I am known for my margarita diplomacy, and so I make a killer margarita, and have built a lot of relationships with a lot of legislators over a margarita or a cigar too.
You smoke a cigar? What's your favorite?
What?
What's your favorite cigar?
Oh. I will be honest. I like Oliva, and we get a lot of them in Tallahassee. I don't like him, but his cigars are good.
Oh,
so you have faith that there's enough people on the other side of the aisle that can sort of move more towards the middle in terms of being cooperative. If we had a Democratic governor that wants to move in a way that's going to bring people together. I guess what I'm trying to say is. Are you confident enough that there's enough people there on both sides of the aisle that you can move Florida from being a national punchline to a national leader?
Yes and no. I don't want to be naive into thinking that they are, whoever the governor is, they're not going to fight them tooth and nail on everything. Yes. But again, as the governor, you have the veto pen, and with a smile, and the way that I do it is try to work it out and try to figure it out and try to figure out how to get to the right place for everyone and for us to move the state forward. I believe that we can, for example, expand Medicaid. That I know that we have enough votes and those few stragglers we can get through with the veto pen. And I know that would be a humongous advancement for Florida. We spend a tremendous amount of money because we don't take that federal money we send to Washington and get it here. And the rest of us who have insurance are actually paying for it because we have a hidden tax of $2,000 every time you go to the hospital, and we have insurance and we're paying for it. The doctor's not paying for it. The hospital's not paying for it. And the insurance is certainly not paying for it. So we're paying for it. And a lot of people don't know that because it's hidden. And that number doesn't come from some liberal think tank or Annette Taddeo. It comes from the Florida Chamber of Commerce. And I have been the sponsor of Medicaid expansion ever since I got there. And I can tell you that is the first thing I know I can get done because I have had the conversations with the legislators and I know we can get the votes necessary. And there's only 12 states left, a lot of them super Republican, and not one of those states that have expanded Medicaid have said, you know what, take it back. It's a really bad idea. Not one, for a reason, because it's a really good idea.
Well, Senator, I want to get into your campaign. Now, I knew about you because I know a little bit about politics, but for the average listener of please explain to us about your campaigns. What are you going to do in Tallahassee when you get up there? You know, notice what I said when you get up there, so I kind of, you know what I mean?
Not if.
Endorsement.
Not if, when. Yep.
Thank you. Well, listen, I got to get there first. So let's first talk about how do we get there. I have to win a primary, and it's definitely an uphill battle. But I don't know easy battles. This is actually what excites me even more. It's like, okay, it's hard. Okay, I'm ready. Now you want to put another obstacle? No problem. Let's see how high you see me jump over that obstacle you're putting. I think that that is definitely one of the things that we're doing is going all over the state. We have a 67 county tour that we've been doing, going everywhere, meeting voters where they are. I do think that we make the mistake where we only think that we're going to win just with certain areas, and it's a math. You got to add them all up. I know that what our polling has shown, but also what I'm seeing and feeling going across the state is that when Democrats hear the three candidates, and we're often on the stage together, usually they do it in alphabetical order, so I get to go last, and the response, the feeling, the wow, you switched my vote, is really, really everything we saw in the numbers that would happen when people hear my story. So one of the things that I am doing is I am making sure that Democrats vote for me, not just against DeSantis. I think that we need to do that in the general as well. And if we've learned anything from the last two times we've won in Florida, which was Barack Obama in 2008 and 2012, was that we, first of all, had a diverse electorate of all kinds of people that usually had no reason to come out to vote because neither side excited them. And we need to give people a reason to come out to vote, not just a reason to vote against the other guy. So I think that that's going to be the key to us winning. It is hard. Money is very hard to come by in politics, especially when you're a minority. But that's okay. We know that the numbers move as soon as people hear our story, and that we are grassroots, and we got to work 3 times as hard to get half the respect. It goes with any minority, and that's okay. We know that we can be successful, so that's what we are doing. We are going to bring people out to vote, create a whole new electorate. Let me give you some math because this is really important for everybody to understand. Biden had the worst collapse in Miami-Dade County history.
Yeah, I remember that night.
Yes. And so Hillary won by 23 points bigger, Miami-Dade. Gillum won it by 15 points bigger. And what I know is that the math really, for us to win statewide, we have to win in the top 5 counties where we have a large number of Hispanics. And if we simply bring it to the levels of Hillary Clinton in those top 5 counties where there's a large number of Hispanics, that is 350,000 additional votes. Please understand that DeSantis barely won by about 30,000 votes.
Jesus.
So we really know that we have the voters out there. By the way, the Republicans know it. I mean, they go out of their way to try to just get a few and get enough of the margins from the African American community, from the Jewish community, from the Hispanic community. And they don't win these communities, but they get enough, and certainly from the Hispanic community, they got quite a bit, which really, really made a difference in a state like Florida. So for us to win, we have to get those votes back. And then once we get there, then we can actually repeal a lot of bad bills, pass some really good bills, but more importantly, give Tallahassee some balance and get us to go up there to talk about the real issues. Not this, I mean, right now, it's like whether it's Don't Say Gay, banning books, banning a woman's right to choose, even in cases of rape or incest. I mean, everything is banned. Even immigrant children who are unaccompanied are now banned.
Wow.
It's just like the kind of stuff that is just hatred after hatred after hatred. Are these the real issues? Are these why people are calling my office? Heck no. Not one person has called my office. You know what? There's an unaccompanied child out there at the Archdiocese of Miami. I think that that's a problem. Not one person. It really is sad. And we need leadership that is actually going to deal with the real issues so that we can all move forward. And yes, we should not be having these humongous fights. I'm willing to have a fight with a major corporation, but how about we all work together to try to move forward and instead of punishing them because they dare say something
just don't fight this because that's not a good fight.
Yeah, that's a tough fight. That's a tough fight, especially with the way that they employ people in this state.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But it's not just Disney. I mean, it was also the cruise ship industry.
Yeah. Yes.
The cruise ship industry couldn't get back on the ocean.
Yeah.
Take off because of DeSantis. Insane. Because he didn't want them to be able to ask people if they got their vaccine. That's outrageous. Government should not be telling private businesses how to run their businesses. They were trying to get back on their feet. Another major industry in Florida. So
but when did that change, Governor? Because for me, I thought the Republican...
You're already calling her governor. Wow.
Governor,
wow. Jeez.
I caught that.
I was going to say.
Senator, when did that change? Because normally it'd be the Republican that actually supposedly fight for business.
Yes.
When did that flip?
Well, again, it's all pretend. Let's be real, because if you look at if you follow the money, a lot of the money from that funds all these campaigns.
Yeah.
But I think it's sort of, things are sort of backwards. It makes no sense. Republicans used to be very much about home rule. Big government shouldn't be telling your local elected officials what to do. Now it's like they just want to be dictators and be over there telling everybody what to do. I think there's been a huge change in the Republican Party, which is why, again, I do think some of those voters could come our way, especially women who really are not liking a lot of the hatred, the nastiness. A lot of moms with kids in public school that are like, I don't want to have a governor that bullies our kids because they happen to be wearing a mask. I mean, it just really, those kinds of moments and behavior is unacceptable.
We'll be right back with the Big Victories podcast.
This podcast was recorded in Miami Podcast Studios. Call us now for booking 305-968-5366 for all of your video podcasting needs. 305-968-5366.
The Big Victories podcast, hosted by Big Vic, with co-hosts Mev the Renegade and Jeremy St. Louis.
So, Senator, who are some of the people you have looked up to as a kid when in politics that got you into politics? Who did you follow? What made you get into politics?
I don't know that I followed a lot of politics. Remember, I grew up in South America, so it's really my father.
I follow that. Yeah.
I know. My father was more of an influence on me than I think that any of these people. When when I love Halloween. So when it was Halloween and I would dress up, my two favorite things to dress up as, one was Wonder Woman, because she was a woman, hero, and she didn't have blonde hair. She had dark hair, and it was Linda Carter, and I just was like, oh, somebody that sort of looks like me. This is great. Like, it's really important, and this is why I say representation matters to a lot of kids, because if you don't see yourself in people in positions of power, it really is hard for you to dream big, and so that's one thing. And the other one was I would dress up as my dad. I remember, even with this was a fake cigar, but even with the cigar, and I know where I get the cigar thing, although my grandmother also smoked cigars. But I just think that my dad was a huge influence, and I always just wanted to be like him, just somebody that was successful but caring, and always taught me to treat everybody well. I remember, in South America, there's a lot of classism. And so there are, there are maids, and there are drivers, and there's a lot of different levels of class. And in my household, the workers got treated better than the kids. And
son of leadership.
Yes. And my dad really taught us about how important that was, and how it really said more about you, how you treat those that you don't think could ever do anything for you. And that to me, I think, was much more of an influence than any elected leader. I will say that, obviously, once I got to the United States and got involved in politics, obviously, there's lots of Democrats that I followed on different issues, whether it was Bill Clinton on his economic kind of messaging, but Barack Obama, of course, with just, breaking barriers and really, again, leaving a legacy that a lot of people didn't realize at that point, but the fact that so many people have health care, and that I know we're not going back, is really, it's instrumental and life-changing. And all the big changes in this country have been done by Democrats. I mean, all the big programs that are really, really good for society, whether it's Social Security or Medicare, Medicaid, Obamacare, as the Republicans thought they were doing damage, and it turned out to be just a great thing. And so, yes, so I think that leaving that mark and watching those big changes for generations that one can make as a leader, I would certainly aspire to see that.
Well, I have to say this one thing. One of my co-hosts happens to be, he's Latin. His mom is, and he's one of the best producers in the world. Right now, his name is Mav. He was telling me about the show, having you on the show, and the way his mom is going to accept the show, having seen you on there, a Latina woman running for such a big office. I want him to express that to you, because he's kind of expressed it to me the other day. Mav.
No, definitely. It's crazy. Actually, I was on the phone with my mother right before we got on. She was like, "Oh, you're not on yet? Okay, I just wanted to call you and, wish you good luck, and, hope you guys have a great taping." But, one thing, she's really up to date with Florida politics. I think it's really interesting that you guys share some of the story. When she was 16, she left Dominica and moved to Puerto Rico.
Wow.
And not knowing a word of Spanish, learned Spanish on her own, and really came to be a woman. I really taught her how to be a woman. She met my father, and then they moved to Florida, and now it's actually funny, they're in Puerto Rico right now. So she come from Puerto Rico to Westchester Square.
Because there's still a power problem in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, so I actually called them, and they said, so this one thing about Puerto Ricans, we learn. after the hurricane, they said everybody had generators. So they said it was like nothing had ever happened. So I said, okay, that's good to see my people learn. But no, Senator, one thing, it doesn't take anybody but a simple Google search to search you, to know that you're a fighter. That's one of the first things that comes up. But I think one thing that separates you from myself, from my perspective, and most other politicians, is that you not only fight, but you turn around and you help others fight. even from seeing that you started a business and hearing you speak about how you came to this country and it was really difficult dealing with the language barrier, but yet you turned around and started a business that helped
language.
people.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like that passion to want to turn around and help others fight. Like, I think that's something that's really great. And please don't ever lose that. We need more people like you. Definitely. Thank you for that.
You.
Yes.
Thank you. You should be my daughter. She's worse.
Setting a good example certainly is, is something that, is something that certainly comes across in speaking with you. Not only that you're inspirational to, those around you, but obviously those who follow you, those who side with you, who vote with you, and those who are, changed by you, changed by what you tell them about, hey, here's what I can do, here's how I can change things. So, Senator, you talked about the influence of big business, the influence of the insurance companies, and how they are kind of molding Florida into what they want. So how do the Democrats go about changing that without damaging the Florida economy?
And frankly, again, is having everybody at the table. I think that it's a mistake when we demonize some of these companies, and for example, when the whole thing happened with Disney, one of my frustrations was that all of a sudden everybody started attacking Disney, and not to defend it, but I was like, wait, let's not forget who came up with Don't Say Nay.
Yeah.
It was Ron DeSantis. And so somehow if we take our eye off the ball of who's really responsible, then we're just letting them dictate how we do things, what we talk about, and that is not okay. So I think that everybody, in order for us, like I talked about, learning from each other, really understanding each other, talking to each other, and hearing each other out versus just screaming at each other. I think that goes with corporations as well. I think it's really important that most companies also want us to have water. Most companies also want us to have housing because their employees need to live somewhere. So they want us to have employees they can hire, and you can't really if we're putting a huge percentage of them in jail. So just unless that's the business, which of course there is that. There is that. Yeah. Whole other subject.
Yes.
Which again, it's a problem. I sit here and I watch all these people say Democrats are socialists, and by the way, they've tried all that on me. They called me a socialista, comunista, and a terrorist sympathizer. But we fought back. Story, and we won. And I will tell you, I get really interested when they say socialist. Meanwhile, they're the ones that their business revolves around getting government money, because so many of them are in the charter school business, which is a for-profit business, which the reason they're in business is because they get government money. And they're taking money from our children's education. The same thing with all of them getting all these contracts and all of these different, whatever business they're in, they really are in the business of making money off of the government. So I think the actual socialist is them. Because the rest of us are out here actually paying taxes, exactly. And they're taking advantage, and it's not okay.
So how do you go about shining a light on that? Because I know, I work in the media, so I'm Canadian, so I get called the socialist all the time by Republican people. So because in Canada we have we have healthcare, so you're called a socialist because you've got healthcare. But how do you go about sort of getting that message out to people who may not necessarily want to hear it? Because we know what the climate is. It's name calling. It's saying one thing, but it's actually another. Nobody trusts the media anymore. Everybody's taking everything with a grain of salt. So how do you, as a Democrat, go out there and get that message when the Democrats, you're saying the right things, but the Republicans are calling you communists and socialists, and there's people that are believing that that's true. So how do you switch that narrative for people?
Well, first of all, you got to fight back. You can't just pretend like it's ridiculous or simply say, I'm a capitalist, and somehow that's going to fix it all. It's not. clearly. We have seen the numbers and we have seen the voter response to those attacks, and which is why I used my experience where they tried those attacks, but we didn't take them. And this is my biggest complaint: is you cannot let them define you as something that you're not and not fight back. As far as how do we deal with also working with companies and things, look, we're not going to be able to work on everything, but there are things where we can. And I'll give you a perfect example of something that I did that it was really very interesting. And I actually worked with one of the Republican senators to pass a bill that was really important for South Florida, specifically for Miami-Dade. We have millions of gallons of water that was sewer water that was going into the bay.
Yep.
We needed to figure out a way to get that water, instead of being thrown into the bay and then we have all the problems, to actually figure out what to do with this water. And so in came, here is elected government and the company FPL, which I know there's a lot of people that will criticize. How dare you talk to FPL? But what we did is they needed water. They needed water for the plant because they needed to reuse. So we came up with a way for them to be able to reuse this water. And it was a win-win for everybody. And that water is actually being cleaned out through an entire process and reused to cool the plant, and which was important. Yeah. And it's no longer going into the bay. I mean, this is such a win-win, and we got to do more of these things where we actually sit down and come up with solutions. And yes, it would be better if none of us needed air conditioning and therefore we didn't need electricity. But until you're ready to give up your air conditioning, don't talk to me about, how can you talk to them? So I think that is really important that, again, and I've fought them on some things a lot, and I've voted against them many times, more than yes. But you have to find solutions. And I believe that there's so many things like that, where if we actually sit down and start trying to come out with solutions. But unfortunately, in this industry, in this business of politics, people are more worried about getting credit and about having their name on things than about actually getting things done. I was going to say a bad word, but
not only that, you can say this on Senator. We coming to the end of the show. I would love for you to tell people how to get in touch with your campaign. We got like 5 minutes left, and I'm gonna dedicate that to you to just explain to people how to get in contact with the campaign and what are great things you're doing within the 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I love it. I love the conversation, and I love that you guys spend enough time to really get to the nitty-gritty and get to know the candidate.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Many of them are too many people love to the fancy website and the fancy write-ups and then you try to get deep, like to find out what does that mean, and there's nothing there. And I think that's dangerous. And we're seeing it now with the current governor, where there's a lot of dangerous policies that are actually hurting people. We should be doing, by the way, something about the fact that we have such a high rate of suicide from kids who are either trans or because of their gender identity or sexual orientation. And instead of us working towards solutions to a real problem, we raised every kind of help available on the Department of Education website. That page has disappeared.
Yes.
And it's just, to me, again, I don't know what kind of God they believe in, but it is just hateful and not right. And to just be blaming people for political purposes of you getting ahead. I know that this is a tough road. I told you guys this. I know that it is a tough road ahead. AnnetteTaddeo.com is our website. We are a grassroots campaign. We need grassroots help. Go to our website. We do have hundreds of volunteers throughout the state who are calling other voters and telling them my story, because we know when people hear it, they come our way. And our numbers have been going up to where we're now in double digits at 15. So we know that it's a process, and that most Democrats actually will not decide until much, much later in the race. And as a matter of fact, the last time we had Gillum in fourth place all the way on election eve. Mm-hmm. And also on the Republican side, it was supposed to be Adam Putnam, and Adam Putnam was huge in the polls and all the money. And Floridians are sort of interesting like this. Floridians like to wait, and more importantly, Floridians like to vote for someone, feel excited about their nominee on either side. And I think that that's what we're seeing in this campaign, is giving people a reason to come out to vote, giving them the hope and the knowledge that they're going to have somebody that's going to fight DeSantis to beat him, to actually create the coalition of voters that we need to win. And then we are going to have some balance in Tallahassee, because let me tell you, our red tide problem is not just in our water. We have a red tide problem in Tallahassee where we are actually suppressing voters' rights and killing democracy. And this race is about something so much bigger than me or any of the other candidates. It is truly about democracy and the future of America, because the way Florida goes, and this guy wants to be president, so it's up to us. And a lot of people across the country have given up on us. They say, oh, no, they just keep losing. They're not going to win. And it's gone. It's like, forget about it. This guy is in. Well, if you have that behavior, of course he's going to be in. Yeah. But I know that it is up to us to actually save Florida from this guy, and therefore to save the country from this guy, because he is dangerous and he has got to be stopped, and it's up to us to do it. But guess what? I believe in us. I believe in Florida, and I know we can do it.
Senator Taddeo, a Grassroots campaign. We have enjoyed having you on our Grassroots podcast, because this is very much a Grassroots podcast. So it's been a real pleasure having you on, and very inspirational, your story. And, I'm sure a lot of people that are listening to this and watching this are going to, take a lot from that, and certainly be on your side, hoping that in this gubernatorial race, you are one of the ones that come on. I know everybody here is cheering for you and hoping for you, and it's been a real pleasure to have you on the podcast, to hear your story and to hear your platform and to hear, the things, the vision that you have for Florida. We can't thank you enough for coming on the Big Victories podcast.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Happy back.
You gotta come back. Got a Big Victory cigar for you when you come back.
You become the governor. We're going to hold you to that.
Yeah, I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator.
Push hard, big body, bimmer. Y'all them love me one fin me like then a big bulldog. 4-4 air trigger. Any boy this will get him head top, lift up in the push hard, big body, bimmer. Y'all them love me one fin me like then a big bulldog. 4-4 air trigger. Any boy this will get